With the release of Veilguard just within arm's reach, I thought I'd refresh our memories and make as brief a review as I can about everything I think you'll probably need to know about the Dragon Age lore, the story so far, and some speculations that may be relevant in the upcoming game. Please note that this brief overview is already going to be not so brief, so I will not be going into every single detail about every single thing in the lore, because this lore goes pretty deep and we'd be here for days. So make use of the timestamps, and obviously this video is just all spoilers for all the games so far. This includes all the marketing material BioWare has released for Veilguard. And sorry if you can hear my dog snoring in the background. The continent in which these games take place is called Thedas. It's divided into various nations, each with their own cultures, politics, and conflicts. Races. Let's start with looking at the different races of Thedas and their beliefs. Humans. Humans are the most dominant and politically influential race in Thedas. They control many of the major nations, including, but not limited to, Ferelden, where Origins and Inquisition take place, the Free Marches, where Dragon Age 2 takes place, Orlais, where Inquisition also takes place, and the Tevinter Imperium, where it seems will be in Veilguard. Human societies are diverse, ranging from feudal structures of Ferelden to the magocracy of Tevinter, where mages hold power, quite different from other countries who follow the Chant of Light. This is the religion that most humans tend to follow, though their cultures vary widely across regions, leading to different customs, politics, and religious interpretations. Andrastianism is the dominant religion in Thedas, worshipping the Maker and his prophet Andraste. Their church, the Chantry, the influence is widespread and plays a significant role in governing and maintaining order in most countries in Thedas, with some exceptions. However, the mainstream chant teaches that Andraste, a human woman, was the prophet of the Maker, and recorded her experience speaking to him. She began preaching of him and amassed a large number of followers. Eventually, she led an exalted march against the Tevinter Imperium, who, at the time, were worshipping the old gods, or dragon deities we'll talk about later. Andraste was then betrayed by her husband, Mafarath, and became a martyr, inspiring many more followers, and thus eventually leading to the creation of the Chantry. In modern times, the Tevinter Imperium has their own version of the Chantry, called the Imperial Chantry, with different interpretations of the chant, but still basically Andrastianism. An example of differing human beliefs is the Avar, a tribal people who worship spirits as gods, as featured in the Jaws of Hakon DLC, who do not follow the Chant of Light. Elves. The Elves are a marginalized and oppressed race in Thedas, often living as second-class citizens within human cities, or as nomadic tribes called the Dalish. In cities, Elves are confined to impoverished areas known as alienages, facing discrimination and limited opportunities. Or they're often kept as slaves by the humans. The Dalish Elves strive to preserve their ancient culture, language, and traditions, living apart from humans, and worship their own gods, the Creators, or the Evanuris. The Elves have a long and complicated history, characterized by a dramatic fall from a once great civilization. Millennia ago, Elves were a powerful, immortal race, and their empire was called Elgar'nan.
Elgar'nan was the empire, and Arlathan its greatest city, a place of magic and beauty, lost to time.
You've studied ancient elves. What else do you know of Arlathan?
We hear stories of them living in trees, and imagine wooden ramps or Dalish airvels. Imagine instead spires of crystal twining through the branches, palaces floating among the clouds. Imagine beings who lived forever, for whom magic was as natural as breathing. That is what was lost.
Their society was deeply magical, and they believed their gods, the Evanuris, were the creators and rulers. However, elven legend says things went wrong because of a great betrayal.
Long ago, there were two clans of gods. The Creators looked after the people, the Forgotten Ones preyed upon us. And one god who was neither. Fan Harel, the Dread Wolf. He was kin to the Creators, and in the old days often helped them in their endless war against the Forgotten Ones. Fan Harel was clever, He could walk among both clans of gods without fear, and both believed he was one of them. He went to each side and told them the other had forged a terrible weapon, a blade that would end the war. He told the Creators it was forged in the heavens, and the Forgotten Ones that it was hidden in the abyss. And when the gods went seeking it, he sealed them both in their realms forever. Now he alone is left in the world.
Without their gods, the Elven Empire fell, and humans arrived in Thedas, who are said to have caused the elves to become mortal. They were weakened, and the growing human nation, the Tevinter Imperium, took over, enslaving the elves, who lost most of their culture and history, erased over centuries of subjugation. After Andraste's exiled march on Tevinter, elven slaves rose up to join the fight. As a thank you, they were given the Dales, an area in the current country of Orlais, to make their new homeland and their new city, Halam Sharal. These elves tried to regain their lost glory and independence and gradually separated themselves from humans more and more. This led to a holy war between the Dalish elves and the Chantry of Orlais, and Halam Sharal was conquered after an exiled march of the Dales. The elves that lived in the cities became the city elves we know in modern Thedas, and those who refused to give up their worship and dreams became the modern Dalish clans, vowing to keep their culture alive with what little knowledge they had left. Dwarves. Though many dwarves have moved to live on the surface, dwarves come from underground.
My mam used to say they don't got no stone to protect them topside. If I go up there, I'm gonna fall into the sky.
Living in vast, ancient cities known as taigs, all connected by the deep roads. Their society is rigidly hierarchical, with castes determining social status and occupation. Dwarves are renowned for their craftsmanship and have a unique resistance to magic, which also makes them unable to be mages. Due to centuries of Darkspawn incursions, which we'll discuss later, most dwarven taigs have been lost, leaving only two major kingdoms still standing, Orzammar and Kalsharok. But Kalsharok has been cut off from mainstream dwarven society for centuries after being sacrificed to the Darkspawn in order to save Orzammar. Once it was discovered that Kalsharok had survived, the dwarves there were unwilling to re-establish contact with the rest of the world due to their resentment. Dwarven beliefs center around the stone, which they revere as both a spiritual and physical foundation of their existence. They believe that the stone is a living entity that shapes their fate, with every dwarf being cast from it. Upon death, a dwarf spirit returns to the stone, and their deeds, good or bad, either strengthen or weaken it. The greatest ancestors become paragons, who are seen as living embodiments of the stone's virtues and are honored almost as deities. Qunari. The Qunari are a tall, horned race. Most follow a strict philosophical code known as the Qun. This code dictates every aspect of their society, from roles and behavior to beliefs, creating a structured collectivist culture. Unlike other races, Qunari refers to not only their species but also to those who follow the Qun, regardless of origin, as many other races have become converted to the Qun.
The humans and elves who follow the Qun are the Vidathari. The Qunari who break away from the Qun are Talvasha, deserters.
Especially in Tevinter, most people outside of the Qun view the Qunari as a violent and brutal people. The Qunari are said to have come from a race called the Kossith that predates the Qun, but not much is known about them.
The people we came from, they're called the Kossith, but we don't use that word for the race. We came south to Thedas because the Kossith were... I don't know. We had to leave. The stories aren't clear. But I don't expect they look much like us, whatever they are.
The Qunari once threatened to conquer all of the world, but they have since made peace with all of the nations except Tevinter, where they're still in a war for dominance of northern Thedas. Key concepts. Next, let's review some important key concepts in the world of Thedas as a whole. Again, the lore goes deep, but let's set the stage for a better understanding. Lyrium.
The sacred gift the stone provides us to show her love.
Lyrium is a mysterious, potent mineral found both in the Fade and deep underground in Thedas, and is known for its magical properties. raw lyrium is dangerous and can cause madness or death, but when refined, it is used to enhance magic and create enchantments. Dwarves, resistant to its harmful effects, are the only ones who can mine it safely, and it plays a big role in their trade. Despite their innate resistance, contact with raw lyrium can still be dangerous to them.
I had a little incident a few years back. Too much time with the raw lyrium ore, you know. Maybe it was a bad vein. I cut myself and the dust got straight in the blood. Since then, it's been a little hard for me to concentrate. Except when forging, then I'm straight as an arrow. Best work you've ever seen. Weak surfacers like you touch the raw ore, and you'll bleed from your eyeballs in hours. Weird seeing how big you are. Even surface dwarves lose it. Us down here, though, we should be able to handle it just fine. Only not too much, and not every day, and not breathing the dust, and not direct in the blood. Ancestors' own bad luck.
Lyrium is a hot commodity in Thedas, mostly because the Templars take a processed form to gain abilities to control and suppress magic, while mages use lyrium to amplify their magic. Mages, Templars, and magic. Mages are people of all races, aside from dwarves, who have the ability to tap into the Fade and use magic. But this makes them susceptible to demonic possession. As a result, they are legally required to be taken in their childhood to a place called the Circle, which is kind of like a school of magic / prison, where they are strictly overseen by Templars, a defensive chantry order tasked with keeping all the mages under control. Apostate mages, however, are mages who are illegally not part of the Circle, whether they have evaded being taken there or they have fled. When Circle mages prove to be unable to resist the temptation of demons, or even if they become too unruly, they're made tranquil, a threat that keeps most mages in line.
Do you know why those with magical talent are feared? Those with magical talent attract demons and spirits. We can be possessed easily, and thus become horrors known as abominations. Even those with minor talents attract hungry spirits. Anyone with the power may learn blood magic from these demons. Hence, we are considered dangerous. This is our curse. Thus, I was made tranquil, stripped of emotions and talent. I am no longer dangerous. Our forehead is branded with magic, which stills our talent and mind. The process is irreversible as far as I am aware.
I was too rebellious, like you. The Templars knew I had to be made an example of.
Maybe we can find a cure.
Can you cure a beheading? The dreams of tranquil mages are severed. There is nothing left of them to fix.
I would rather die a mage than live as a Templar puppet.
So, tranquilization is effectively a spiritual lobotomy, cutting off mages completely from the Fade. The Fade. The Fade is a mystical, ethereal realm of dreams, spirits, and demons that exists parallel to the physical world. It's the source of magic and a place where all beings, again except dwarves, enter when they dream. It's filled with ever-shifting landscapes and inhabited by spirits and demons who embody different emotions and concepts. The Fade is separated from the physical world by an invisible barrier called the Veil. Mages draw their power from the Fade, making them more attuned to it, but also vulnerable to demonic possession. No traveler to the Fade can fail to spot the Black City. It is one of the few constants of that ever-changing place. No matter where one might be, the city is visible. Always far off, for it seems that the only rule of geography in the Fade is that all points are equidistant from the Black City. The chant teaches that the Black City was once the seat of the Maker, from whence he ruled the Fade, left empty when men turned away from him. Dreamers do not go there, nor do spirits. Even the most powerful demons seemed to avoid the place. It was golden and beautiful once, so the story goes, until a group of powerful Magister lords from the Tevinter Imperium devised a means of breaking in. When they did so, their presence defiled the city, turning it black, which was, perhaps, the least of their worries. The Dalish elves call it the Eternal City and believe it is where their gods are trapped. But the Chantry believes that it was once a golden city where the Maker lived, and it was the mages of Tevinter who turned it black and corrupted.
The light. We sought the golden light. You offered the power of the gods themselves.
He speaks of the Golden City. He was one of them, the Magisters who violated the Maker's sacred space. They became the first Darkspawn. It was he and his kind who brought the Blight down on all of us.
Darkspawn and the Blight. So those powerful mages of the Tevinter Imperium were supposedly those who started the Blight, according to the Chantry.
Chantry law says it is man's pride that created the Darkspawn. In ages past, the mages of the Tevinter Imperium ruled much of the world we know. In their pride, they thought their magics invincible and imagined that they were greater than the Maker himself. So thinking, they invaded his golden city, planning to take it for themselves and depose their own creator. But they were impure and full of sin. And it is with the sin that they tainted the golden city, corrupting it forever. The Maker cursed them and cast them from his sight. Wherever they went, they spread the taint of their sin. Any land that was touched by the taint became blighted and would suffer no life. Instead, the Darkspawn arose to torment us and remind us of our hubris.
The Darkspawn are twisted, corrupted creatures that live underground, emerging periodically to wreak havoc and spread their corruption on the surface during events known as blights. These Darkspawn infest the deep roads, eternally seeking archdemons, who are said to be the old god dragons that the human mages of the Tevinter Imperium used to worship in ancient times.
It is said that long ago, the Maker sent the old gods of the ancient Tevinter Imperium to slumber in prisons deep beneath the surface. An archdemon is an old god awakened and tainted by Darkspawn. Believe that or not, history says it's a fearsome and immortal thing, and only fools ignore history.
These old god dragons have a calling that all blighted creatures can hear.
Once Mother listened to the beautiful call, felt it wash over her and inside her, and she was calm.
It seems to create this hive mind-like compulsion for these Darkspawn to come find them.
My kind has ever been driven to seek out the old gods. This is our nature. When we find one, a blight is begun. Each time we attack your surface lands and you fight back until we are defeated. To break the cycle, my brethren must be freed of their compulsion. It is a plague on our race. We do not begin a blight because we crave power or destruction. We obey the call of the old gods without choice.
As the architect explained, once the Darkspawn find and awaken an archdemon, it leads them to the surface, with their hive-minded army of Darkspawn spreading the corruption. This event is called a blight, and it threatens to consume the entire world. Only the Grey Wardens, an ancient order of warriors, can kill an archdemon and end a blight. The Grey Wardens. The Grey Wardens are an ancient order of warriors dedicated to fighting Darkspawn and ending blights. They are the only group capable of slaying an archdemon. Wardens undergo a special ritual called the Joining, where they consume Darkspawn blood to gain the ability to sense and track Darkspawn. This bond causes them to be able to survive the taint, but it also curses them.
Wardens aren't immune to the taint forever. In time, we start to hear voices. The same ones Darkspawn hear.
Yes, the calling. The songs get louder. Only death stops them.
The calling tells a warden that the Blight will soon claim him. Starts with dreams. Then come whispers in his head. The warden says his farewells and goes to the deep roads to meet his death in combat.
The Grey Wardens are the only people who can kill an archdemon.
The archdemon may be slain, as any other Darkspawn. But should any other than a Grey Warden do the slaying, it will not be enough. The essence of the beast will pass through the taint to the nearest Darkspawn and will be reborn anew in that body. The dragon is thus all but immortal. But if the Archdemon is slain by a Grey Warden, its essence travels into the Grey Warden instead. A Darkspawn is an empty, soulless vessel, but a Grey Warden is not. The essence of the Archdemon is destroyed, and so is the Grey Warden.
Meaning the Grey Warden who kills the Archdemon dies?
Yes. Without the Archdemon, the Blight ends. It is the only way.
And this brings us to Dragon Age Origins. Whether you start out as a mage, a noble human, a noble dwarf, a commoner dwarf, a city elf, or a Dalish elf, you are recruited to the Grey Wardens. The Grey Wardens are trying to recruit in Ferelden because it seems that a blight is starting there. Throughout the last 1,000 years, there have been 4 previous blights, where 4 of the 7 old god archdemons have risen, led the Darkspawn to the surface in an attempt to overrun the world, and all 4 have been killed by a Grey Warden, centuries apart. This 5th old god, Erthemiel, is the one who is causing the current blight. After being recruited into the Wardens, you are betrayed at the Battle of Ostagar, which results in the death of the Ferelden king and the near destruction of the Grey Wardens in Ferelden, causing political turmoil. Flemeth, an infamous and legendary witch of the wilds, rescues you and Alistair, another fairly new warden. This leaves only 2 remaining Grey Wardens in Ferelden, with the task of uniting a fractured kingdom against the Darkspawn horde.
It has always been the Grey Warden's duty to unite the lands against the Blight. Or did that change when I wasn't looking?
To do so, the Warden must gather allies, including mages, Templars, Dwarves, Dalish Elves, and various human factions. The Warden travels around Ferelden, making these allies by traveling with companions through different adventures. Besides Alistair, the other Grey Warden, 2 important allies to note are Leliana, an Orlesian bard and lay sister of the Chantry, and Morrigan, the daughter of Flemeth. Besides fighting against Darkspawn and gathering allies, there's a political upheaval in Ferelden. The king was killed in the betrayal, and it's up to the Warden to choose who the next ruler will be. Eventually, the Warden learns of their inevitable fate, that a Grey Warden must sacrifice their life in order to kill the Archdemon permanently. The Warden can choose to sacrifice themselves or one of their other Grey Warden allies. But Morrigan comes to the Warden with an alternative option. One of the male Grey Wardens on the team can perform a dark ritual with Morrigan.
What I propose is this. Lay with me, here tonight, and from our joining, a child will be conceived. The child will bear the taint, and when the Archdemon is slain, its essence will seek the child like a beacon. At this early stage, the child can absorb that essence and not perish. The Archdemon is still destroyed with no Grey Warden dying in the process. Think about what I offer you. The chance to avoid death. Or better yet, the chance to slay the Archdemon and live as a hero. No Grey Warden has ever done this. In return, I conceive a child. One who will be born with the soul of an old god. After this is done, you allow me to walk away. And you do not follow. Ever. The child will be mine to raise as I wish. It's why I was sent with you by my mother. It's why she saved your life to begin with.
Whatever choice the Warden makes, once the Archdemon is slain, Morrigan disappears and Ferelden celebrates the hero of Ferelden. Dragon Age 2 is the story of your main character, Hawke, as told by a dwarf named Varric Tethras, who is being interrogated by a seeker of truth, Cassandra Pentagast. The story begins as the Hawke family escapes from the 5th Blight in Ferelden, the Blight from Origins, fleeing to Kirkwall as refugees. Along the way, you run into some trouble with Darkspawn, and Flemeth, the legendary Witch of the Wilds, and Morrigan's mother from Origins, rescues you in the form of a dragon. She shapeshifts into her human form, a major glow-up since Origins, and makes a deal with Hawke that she will take them to safety so long as Hawke delivers an amulet to a Dalish keeper in the Free Marches. The Hawke family arrives in Kirkwall, which is rife with political and social tension. The story spans a decade, chronicling Hawke's rise from a lowly outsider to the champion of Kirkwall. The first act follows Hawke as they attempt to make enough money to buy their way into the Deep Roads expedition led by Varric's brother. Along the way, Hawke fulfills their promise to Flemeth, completing a ritual with the amulet at the top of a mountain at an altar to the elven goddess Mythal. Flemeth ends up spawning from the amulet and thanks Hawke with an ominous message of big change coming to the world. Hawke also picks up some companions, namely Varric Tethras and Anders. Anders is a Grey Warden apostate, the name for rebel mages who are illegally not a part of the Circle. And he's also an abomination. He's possessed by a spirit of justice from the Fade, and he really feels some type of way about the way mages are treated in Thedas.
You will never take another mage as you took him.
When Hawke finally raises enough money to become a partner in the expedition, they join up and travel deep down into the Deep Roads where the Dwarves used to thrive, and where the Darkspawn have taken over since the first Blight centuries ago. In the Deep Roads, Hawke and company come across a primeval Tig, an ancient dwarven city that's from long before recorded history.
I don't get it. Nothing in this Tig makes sense. We're well below the Deep Roads. Whatever dwarves lived here, they came long before the first Blight. But where are the statues of paragons? I don't recognize these markings on the wall, or anything in the rubble.
The Tig is really weird and mysterious, and the gang eventually comes across an idol on a pedestal made of what looks like pure Lyrium, except that it's red.
Is that Lyrium?
It's definitely magic. And not the good kind.
Doesn't look like any kind of Lyrium I've ever seen.
The gang hands it over to Varric's brother, the leader of the expedition, and he betrays them all, leaving them to find a way out on their own. Act 2 happens 3 years later, and Hawke has gained wealth and influence. Kirkwall's political situation deteriorates with increasing tension between the mages, who desire freedom, and the Templars, who enforce strict control. At any point during the story, Hawke can head to a Grey Warden prison, where an ancient Darkspawn is being held in a dormant state, Corypheus. Turns out he was one of the original Magisters who breached the Black City, and was the High Priest of Dumat, the first Old God to become an archdemon and start the first Blight.
You offered the power of the gods themselves. But it was black, corrupt, darkness, ever since. How long?
Hawke eventually defeats him in battle, but he appears to body hop to the nearest Grey Warden, like the soul of an archdemon would, and it goes unnoticed by Hawke.
If I cannot leave with you, I will leave through you.
He seems to be able to use the Blight to his advantage, making him essentially immortal. Back in Kirkwall, the Arishok, the leader of a Qunari delegation that landed in Kirkwall, begins growing frustrated by the city's disarray and conflicting interests, and eventually culminates with the Arishok killing the Viscount of Kirkwall, leading to a major battle between him and Hawke.
Look at you. Like fat doth Russie, you feed and complain only when your meal is interrupted. You do not look up. You do not see that the grass is bare. All you leave in your wake is misery. You are blind. I will make you see.
Hawke can either defeat the Arishok in battle, or hand over their companion Isabella, who disrespected the Qunari. Either way, Hawke influences the Qunari to leave Kirkwall, solidifying Hawke's title as the Champion of Kirkwall. After the mess with the Qunari, tensions between the mages and Templars escalate to a boiling point. The mages are getting more and more out of line in their desperation for freedom, only tightening the Templars' control over them, a positive feedback loop of just ever-increasing power struggles. Hawke's radical activist companion Anders decides to do something about it.
I will not stand by and watch you treat all mages like criminal, while those who would lead us bow to their Templar jailers.
How dare you speak to me?
The Circle has failed us, Orsino. Even you should be able to see that. The time has come to act. There can be no half measures.
Anders, what have you done?
There can be no turning back.
And this is the last straw. Things get crazier and crazier between the mages and the Templars, with their leaders both going mad. Hawke kills the Grand Enchanter of the Mages, who turned into an abomination out of desperation, and then has to face the Knight Commander. Turns out she bought that red Lyrium idol from Act 1 from Varric's brother, and she forged it into her sword, causing her to go mad. That mysterious red Lyrium seems to have this effect on anyone it comes close to. Hawke and friends, of course, defeat her too, but the outrage of these events in Kirkwall spreads to other circles in Thedas, and the Mage-Templar War begins. Which brings us to Dragon Age Inquisition. The Mage-Templar War has been going on for 4 years now, and the Divine, the leader of the Chantry, calls for a peace summit. During this meeting, where people of all factions, races, and nations gathered, a mysterious magical explosion occurs, creating the Breach, a massive tear in the veil, the invisible barrier that separates the Fade from the physical realm. And it also creates many other smaller rifts, pulling demons out from the Fade and into the physical world. The only survivor is the Inquisitor, who survived the blast with amnesia and a unique but powerful mark on their hand, capable of closing these rifts. With no leadership in the Chantry, and the Templars and Mages still at odds, many look to the Inquisitor for hope.
The chosen of Andraste, a blessed hero sent to save us all.
The Inquisition, an ancient organization once tasked with safeguarding Thedas, is reformed in order to investigate the breach, restore order, and find out who is responsible. The Inquisitor gathers companions and allies, most notably Cassandra Pentagast and Varric Tethras from Dragon Age 2, and Solas, a reserved elven apostate with extensive knowledge of the Fade and spirits. Turns out that Corypheus, that ancient Darkspawn magister that Hawke found in Dragon Age 2, is the one who orchestrated that explosion, using a powerful ancient elven orb to try and access the Fade. But the power of the orb is what gave the Inquisitor their mark, and he wants it back.
I am here to anchor. The process of removing it begins now. I do not know how you survived, but what marks you as touched, what you flail at rifts, I crafted to assault the very heavens. I once breached the Fade in the name of another to serve the old gods of the Empire in person. I found only chaos and corruption, dead whispers. I have gathered the will to return under no name but my own, to champion withered Tevinter and correct this blighted world. Beg that I succeed, for I have seen the throne of the gods, and it was empty.
Corypheus is immensely powerful, particularly with his use of red Lyrium. We've seen red Lyrium in Dragon Age 2 and the effects that it has on people. It enhances abilities, but it spreads corruption. It's addictive, dangerous, and capable of twisting both the minds and bodies, making it the perfect tool for Corypheus's plan for chaos.
And I found the red Lyrium, and I studied it.
You know what it does to people.
I found out that red Lyrium, it has the Blight, Varric.
Just as he did in Dragon Age 2, Corypheus uses this power of the Blight to create a false calling, enthrall followers, and become effectively immortal by being able to body hop his essence into other blighted creatures.
And his life force passes on to any blighted creature, Darkspawn, or Grey Warden.
So that's how the bastard survived, Hawk.
At some point, the Inquisition is called down to the Deep Roads to help some dwarves investigate the source of mysterious earthquakes. The Inquisitor meets a dwarven shaper, a keeper of memories, almost like a historian. She says she can hear a rhythm or a song in the tremors that she wants to follow. As they battle Darkspawn and explore ancient dwarven ruins, traveling deeper and deeper into the earth, they discover that the tremors are linked to a Titan, a massive, ancient, primordial being connected to the very foundation of the earth. The Inquisitor discovers that Lyrium is actually the blood of these colossal beings. At the end, Shaper Volta is struck by Lyrium, and she comes to with strange new powers. But dwarves can't do magic.
You cast some kind of spell. That shouldn't be possible.
It wasn't a spell. It was an accident. I feel better than I ever have. Stronger, more alive. The breach. That's what disturbed the Titan. It is calm now that it has a connection with one of its children. With me.
The Inquisition leaves the Shaper there to commune with the Titan and learn more about her connection to it, leaving us with a lot of questions about the dwarves' origins. The Inquisition continues to expand to fight Corypheus' ever-growing army, eventually leading us to finding Morrigan, the reclusive witch of the wilds from Origins. She serves as a sort of advisor to the Inquisitor about ancient magic. She leads the Inquisition to an ancient elven temple where she believes Corypheus will be seeking an artifact called the Well of Sorrows. The Inquisition goes to try and intercept him, only to discover that this is a temple of Mythal, the ancient elven goddess, and it is guarded by ancient elven sentinels who have been there since before the fall of the Elven Empire. The Well of Sorrows turns out to be a pool of water that holds the will of Mythal. The Inquisitor must choose between allowing Morrigan to drink from it or drinking it themselves, giving them the power to deny access to Corypheus. But it comes at the cost of the drinker being subjected to the will of the ancient elven goddess Mythal. Finally, after escaping the Well of Sorrows and foiling Corypheus' plans, the consequences of drinking from Mythal's well are discovered. Flemeth, Morrigan's mother, who we have met in all the past games, shows up to give the Inquisitor tips on how to defeat Corypheus, and it is revealed that she is the vessel of a wisp of Mythal.
Once I was but a woman, crying out in the lonely darkness for justice. And she came to me, a wisp of an ancient being, and she granted me all I wanted and more. I have carried Mythal through the ages ever since, seeking the justice denied to her.
So whoever drank from the well is now forever bound to her will.
You gave yourself into the service of an ancient elven god! You are Mythal's creature now. Everything you do, whether you know it or not, will be for her.
The Inquisition uses Flemeth's tips and has a final battle with Corypheus. The Inquisitor gains control of the orb and uses its power to seal the breach permanently and destroy Corypheus. Solas, who has been dead set on retrieving that ancient elven orb, sadly finds its broken shards and disappears without explanation. The rest of the Inquisition remains to celebrate their victory. The epilogue of the game leaves us with some pretty big revelations and twists that lead us straight into the final DLC. That Solas, our trusted elven companion, is the Dread Wolf, an ancient elven trickster god who is said to have betrayed all of the other elven gods, and that he was the one who gave the orb to Corypheus, and that the people need him.
I am so sorry.
I am sorry as well, old friend.
Arguably, this optional DLC is considered by many to be the real ending of the game, and I'm inclined to agree. The Inquisitor gets to have a reunion of sorts, 2 years after the events of the main game. The Inquisitor attends a summit to discuss the future of the Inquisition, which has grown so powerful that many nations now see it as a potential threat. During the summit, the Inquisitor uncovers a Qunari plot to invade southern Thedas in an attempt to stop an even bigger threat, the Dread Wolf. As the Inquisitor progresses, they learn more and more that brings up big questions about everything we thought we knew about ancient elven history. The Inquisitor finds out that the Dread Wolf was actually not so much a trickster, as legend tells, but a revolutionary who offered sanctuary to freed slaves. The Inquisitor finally catches up to their missing companion Solas, who reveals himself to the Inquisitor to be the Dread Wolf of legend.
I sought to set my people free from slavery to would-be gods. I broke the chains of all who wished to join me. The false gods called me Fen'Harel, and when they finally went too far, I formed the Veil and banished them forever. Thus I freed the elven people, and in so doing, destroyed their world.
He goes on to explain that the trapped ancient elven gods, the Evanuris, were just powerful mages who gathered more and more and more power and influence with an extreme lust for power, and ultimately ended up killing Mythal, the wisp that Flemeth told us she has a vessel for. Solas explains that that was his final straw, and so he created the Veil, separating the Fade and the physical realm from each other, and trapped the elven gods away in the Fade, causing the elven people to lose their immortality and their empire. He tells us what his ultimate hope was, and what his plan will be.
My people fell for what I did to strike the Evanuris down. But still, some hope remains for restoration. I will save the elven people, even if it means this world must die. The plan was for Corypheus to unlock it, and for the resulting explosion to kill him. Then I would claim the orb. I would have entered the Fade using the mark you now bear. Then I would have torn down the Veil. As this world burned in the raw chaos, I would have restored the world of my time. The world of the Elves.
What's important to remember is that all of this happened millennia ago, and Solas has been asleep regaining power since then. And now that he's awake, trying to undo the mistakes he's made, it looks like we're going to have to try and stop him.
If you destroyed the Veil, wouldn't the false gods be freed?
I had plans.
But
the blighted elven gods walk free, all because you disrupted my ritual.
Key players, the Evanuris. Although there are 8 elven gods, 9 if you count Fen'Harel, I'm going to briefly review the 3 who I think will be important to know about in Veilguard. Solas makes it very clear that these Evanuris were just people and not gods.
You don't even believe in the ancient elven gods.
I don't believe they were gods, no, but I believe that they existed. Something existed to start the legends. If not gods, then mages, or spirits, or something we've never seen.
We've already talked about Solas, Fen'Harel, the Dread Wolf. If you need to scroll back, he's discussed in the Elves section and the Dragon Age Inquisition section. Mythal. Let's next go into a little more depth about Mythal, since we've already gotten a sneak peek of the All-Mother, the Great Protector.
Perhaps Mythal was a powerful elf, a ruler among her kind. History often plays storyteller with facts.
You admit lack of knowledge, and yet dismiss her so readily?
I do not dismiss her. I question her supposed divinity. One need not be a god to have value. Truthfully, I'm uncertain Mythal was even a single entity. The accounts are varied.
There are varied accounts of Mythal.
In most stories, Mythal rights wrongs while exercising motherly kindness. Let fly your voice to Mythal, deliverer of justice, protector of sun and earth alike. Other paint her as dark, vengeful. Pray to Mythal and she would smite your enemies, leaving them in agony.
The oldest accounts say Mythal was both of these, and neither. She was the mother, protective and fierce. That is all I will say. She was the best of them. She cared for her people. She protected them. She was a voice of reason.
Yet, even though Solas seems to be defensive of Mythal and has very reverent things to say about her, he seems to not fully trust her.
You gave yourself into the service of an ancient elven god! You are Mythal's creature now. Everything you do, whether you know it or not, will be for her. You have given up a part of yourself.
I have not become Mythal's slave.
Not yet. But if you remove the layer of nostalgia from stories of the elven gods, you might see the danger. They were arrogant and fickle. They warred amongst themselves. They had feuds, vendettas. And you are bound to one of them now.
He seems to be grouping her in with the rest of them that he talks so poorly about. We find out that the rest of the Evanuris murdered her long ago, but we're unsure about why or how.
She was betrayed as I was betrayed, as the world was betrayed. Mythal clawed and crawled her way through the ages to me, and I will see her avenged!
If we take her literally, maybe the way Flemeth was betrayed might give us a clue as to how Mythal was betrayed.
I know the name Flemeth. It belongs to an ancient Ferelden legend. It says long ago you left your husband for a lover. Your husband then tricked you, killed your lover, and imprisoned you. Then a spirit came to offer you vengeance. Mythal. That's what you spoke of.
Did something similar happen to Mythal? Mythal has been inhabiting Flemeth's body for a very long time, with implied plans to pass her essence on to Morrigan. Is that what Flemeth was sending through the Alluvion at the beginning of the epilogue? The essence of Mythal to Morrigan? Or did Solas take it? Elgar'nan. We have surprisingly little information about Elgar'nan, considering he's the supposed head of the Pantheon, but it seems we're going to learn a lot more about him in the upcoming game, as he's going to be one of the baddies.
All the world will soon share the peace and comfort of my reign.
He's known as the All-Father, or the God of Vengeance, often represented with the symbol of the sun. Mythal was said to be his wife. The Dalish tales say that Elgar'nan is the first son of the sun and the earth. The earth created birds, beasts, and all things green as a gift to him. The sun became jealous of Elgar'nan's love for his mother's gifts, so he burnt them all to ash. The earth cried and cracked in sadness, her tears filling these cracks, forming rivers and oceans. In a rage, Elgar'nan hurled himself at his father, the sun, and they fought for an eternity. His rage never weakened, and eventually he was able to tear the sun down from the sky and bury him in a deep abyss. He set about trying to recreate what was lost, but could not do it without the sun. With Mythal's help and guidance, he freed the sun from its prison, with the promise that he would be gentle and would set every night. Together, he, Mythal, the sun, and the land recreated all that was. Elgar'nan is said to be beautiful and clever, the patron of fatherhood, and the taker of vengeance, his name often being invoked by the Dalish seeking retribution. The Dalish see him as the god that will one day return them to their rightful glory. From a codex found in the Temple of Mythal, it appears that the ancient elves also did the same. Here's a song for Elgar'nan. Elgar'nan, wrath and thunder, give us glory, give us victory over the earth that shakes our cities. Strike the usurpers with your lightning, burn the ground under your gaze. Bring winged death against those who throw down our work. Elgar'nan, help us tame the land. It's interesting that this codex talks about taming the land and being victorious over it, while the Dalish origin story tells of the earth being his beloved mother. Could this earth be talking about the Titans? I mentioned it in the Mythal section, but could Elgar'nan be the one who betrayed her? If we look at how her host Flemeth was betrayed by her husband, could Mythal have had a similar story and thus why she was drawn to her?
I knew the hearts of men even before Mythal came to me. It is why she came to me.
In the mosaics around the Temple of Mythal, we can see what appears to be Elgar'nan holding down the sun. But the ancient Elven writing codex describes what may be another description of him, or at least a form he could take. It talks about someone being judged for committing a crime and begs protection from Mythal. She does not show him favor and will let Elgar'nan judge him. For one moment, there is an image of a shifting, shadowy mass with blazing eyes, whose form may be one or many. Then it fades. Though this is not explicitly said to be Elgar'nan, it can be inferred. What does this say about Elgar'nan's physical form, or lack thereof? That song to Elgar'nan describes winged death, which makes me think dragon. Was he a dragon? Could he transform into a dragon? Or did he just have a pet dragon? Could this dragon in the Veilguard trailer be his? Its horns have the same shape as the headpiece we see Elgar'nan represented by. Ghilan'nain. My favorite, the mother of the Hala. I made a deep dive video about her a few years back, and I'm linking it in the description if you'd like to go into more detail. She's kind of stolen the spotlight in the Veilguard marketing. Ghilan'nain is the only elven god who wasn't said to have been born of Mythal and Elgar'nan and was raised up to godhood later. The Dalish see her as this ethereal victim who was bound and blinded by a vengeful hunter. Because she was Andruil's chosen, whatever that means, Andruil saved her by turning her into the first Hala. But more information we have learned outside of the Dalish tellings paint her in a much darker image. In Trespasser, you can find hidden notes that are signed with the stamp of a stylized Hala head, giving the impression that they were written by Ghilan'nain herself. These notes discuss experimenting on live, sentient beings that she calls stock. The short story The Horror of Hormok in Tevinter Nights also tells of finding an underground, monster-making factory using the Blight. There are Dakrspawn that have too many limbs, are weirdly shaped, and kind of body horror freakish stuff like that. There are elven ruins down there in the deep roads with a symbol of a Hala, what seems to be Ghilan'nain's signature. The middle band with scenes of healing seemed now twisted, wrong. No longer did it seem as though the mages were drawing corruption and disease out of the wounded and infirm, but instead they forced it in, pushing it through and into the fallen bodies. The expressions on the faces of those elven rulers betrayed a contempt that was almost palpable, the beatific smiles edged with disgust and disdain for the creatures at their feet. And the subjects, far from kneeling in reverence as Ramesh had first thought, seemed more to be cowering in terror. So, to make a long story short, it seems that Ghilan'nain was responsible for messing with the Blight and forcing it into slaves, and using it to make freaky creatures. If we read the Codex, the ascension of Ghilan'nain with this frame of reference of her being some creepy Dr. Moreau, her apotheosis makes more sense. Ghilan'nain kept herself apart from the people. She used her power to create animals none had ever seen. The skies teemed with her monsters, the land with her beasts. Andruil hunted them all, and after a year of killing, approached Ghilan'nain with an offer. The gods would share their power with Ghilan'nain, but only if she destroyed her creations, for they were too untamed to remain among the people. This shows that she was kind of a hermit and created monsters that even the powerful elven gods thought were out of control, and probably a challenge to their power. So they pretty much had no choice but to bring her into their flock or fight her. And if we look at what she looks like in Veilguard, we can see the results of her self-experimentation also. And now I think you're pretty much all caught up. I'm going to end this video with a list of common and popular theories without going into any detail about them, but just so you can keep an eye out with me for any hints of them in the upcoming game. Theories. The old gods are the Evanuris. The old gods are the Forgotten Ones. The Titans and Dwarves are the Forgotten Ones. The Forgotten Ones were a part of Fen'Harel's slave rebellion. Double Blight. The Black City is Arlathan. Andraste is Mythal. Flemeth is Andraste. Andraste is an old god baby. Shartan is Solas. The Elves were spirits. The Dwarves were a hive mind connected to Titans. Orbs are Titan hearts. The Blight comes from a dead Titan. Sandal is a Shabratal. Sandal is the Maker. Solas is the Maker. Qunari are dragon-blooded elves. Ghilan'nain created the Qunari. And those are all the main ones I could think of just off the top of my head. I'm sure I'm missing quite a few, so let me know in the comments what I'm missing and which ones are your favorites. Anyway, I hope this helped refresh your memories. Enjoy the Veilguard, and I'll see you all on the other side!